Marketer of the Day, episode 698, Sales and Marketing Funnels. Build Trust and Credibility with Mark Mersman. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Marketer of the Day podcast. We are here with Mark Mersman, and Mark is the Chief Marketing Officer at USA Financial. He was the host of a nationally syndicated radio show for 6 years, and these days he focuses much of his time on developing outbound and inbound marketing systems for independent financial professionals, and he is a very prolific author. He does marketing, investment management. He's been in the Wall Street Journal, Financial Advisor. He's the host of a podcast about marketing for financial advisors titled 16 Ways from Sunday. So, Mark, glad to be talking to you.
Hey, good to join you. Looking forward to the conversation.
Me too. So basically, we have people listening here who are entrepreneurs, business owners, people in all kinds of niches looking to scale. And having heard that or known that, what do you think would be the most helpful topic for us to talk about to get people to where they want to go and where they need to go?
You know, a lot of what we focus on, especially when we're consulting with financial professionals that we work with, is really getting them to think about the sales and marketing funnel and, looking at all the steps that go into that, how to build that effectively. And certainly probably one of the most important things for us in our industry is looking at building trust, establishing credibility, and creating professional contrast. In the financial services industry, as much as I wish it were a really easy and quick sales cycle, we've got a whole lot of trust that we have to build with the clients in order for them to turn over $500,000, $1 million, $2 million, $3 million over to an advisor. There's certainly a process that goes into that. So unfortunately, as much as I'm a huge digital marketing fan and, having followed and seen some of your stuff, a lot of the things that you do, you're getting conversions and getting action and having things happen really quick in the sales cycle. For us, it's a little bit longer of a process. And so we have to, unfortunately, our advisors that we work with, we all want the easy, quick new client. But client acquisition in our industry is a little trickier. And so we really have to focus on, really getting the steps in the sales and marketing funnel in place and then ultimately ensuring that we're establishing trust, building credibility, maintaining interest through nurture campaigns and that sort of thing. Because one of the real critical things in our industry is oftentimes, an advisor might sit with a prospective client and then, the timing's not right. They may not even have money that they can move over to that investment professional at the time. And unfortunately, a lot of professionals in our industry just kind of give up and they don't have nurture campaigns that are continually putting out their thought leadership and staying in front of them. So the sales and marketing funnel is a big part of what we try to focus on, as well as establishing and building that trust and credibility.
So, and it seems like you're saying here that for you and your industry and what you're doing, it's more of a long haul, right? It's easy to sell a $1 Kindle book or $15 book or $100 course or $1,000 program. But when you're saying, $500,000, people handing over their life savings, their livelihood, their retirement income, that seems like one of the biggest conversions of all.
Yeah, we're certainly not selling widgets that, somebody will just pick up and buy and kind of be maybe a little bit more impulsive with their purchase. Now, oftentimes, a couple of the things that you just referenced are certainly one of the earlier steps in the funnel. So you mentioned a book or a Kindle book or certain downloads, things like that. Those are the types of things that oftentimes we're using as that first step in the funnel to create that awareness. And, ultimately, we have a lot of the advisors that we work with that may have written books or written white papers and, or they'll offer really inexpensive ways to become a client, just to get them into that first step so that from there, the upsell is ultimately, I'm going to keep you in my funnel. I'm going to nurture you. You're going to see how smart I am, how credible I am, and how trustworthy I am. And ultimately, the end goal is, you're going to become a client and turn over $500,000, $1 million, your life savings. And it's certainly a big ask. And it's part of, one of the things for us as we look at digital marketing and the use of Facebook and LinkedIn and that sort of thing as a means of getting introduced to potential clients. I mean, it is a long haul, and we have to put very small hurdles in there that are really just designed to get them into that top of the funnel and get them into our world so that we can then continue to build upon that trust. And that's certainly the name of the game for us, because it's a long haul for sure.
And you make a really good point there that you're not just trying to jump someone from all this free stuff into the big payday, so to speak. You're selling things along the way. And so, would you say, is that to get these people to qualify themselves, or to get them used to paying you a little bit of money, or to have a little bit of an ad budget or break even? What's the reason for having a few things for sale along the way versus giving it all away for free and then having the $500,000 transaction be the only paid thing? Why have steps in the funnel?
Sure. We do it both ways in terms of, we have some stuff that is just a pure giveaway for free. And then at the same time, we certainly have things that are paid for. We do a lot of event marketing here. So, for a financial professional who wants to show his or her expertise and knowledge on a particular topic, we will do event marketing out there, and we do a lot of that is done through direct mail. So they're going to host it at a local restaurant. They might host it at a college, a library, whatever it might be. And we might be sending, we'll target down to we've identified who our ideal client is, and we might target down to 3,000 people in an area or 5,000 people. And then we do a direct mail campaign targeted at them to bring them into an event. And, ultimately that's the way of demonstrating their value proposition. And the only thing for sale at that event is an opportunity to come and sit down with that professional for an individual consult. We've done it both ways at those events, where sometimes there'll be a paid for, it costs, there's a quote unquote small tuition that they have to pay for. And usually if we're going to do the paid for tuition type of approach, it might be a 2 or a 3 day type of course. Oftentimes those are done at community colleges and that sort of thing as almost an adult continuing ed, if you will, that they're going to pay to come and get an education. And a lot of the logic there, it's certainly not to get rich and make money off of the tuition, because usually that tuition might only be $39 or $59. It's a nominal thing. And more often than not, that doesn't even break even on the marketing expense. But it's designed, and a lot of the mentality there is that in our industry, we're in the advice industry, right? And the fact of the matter is that people tend to take advice that they pay for. And so that's a lot of the logic that goes into some of the processes that we have. And, if there's a book that they pay for, or if there's an event that they attend and they're paying to attend it, or oftentimes, we might offer, they can come to the event for free, they can come to the initial consult for free, but we're big fans and proponents of charging fees for your time and your planning and your knowledge. And so the first step in that process is there's going to be a planning fee, and that planning fee to develop a financial plan is going to be $500 or $1,000 or $200 an hour, whatever it might be. And, that process is in place so that they're not, at that point, they're not paying yet to move money over with that advisor or with that professional. But the end result is a client that goes through that process, that has some skin in the game, maybe they've got $500 in the game to go through and build a financial plan, the advisor at that point turns around and says, well, if you want to implement this plan and you want to start to, get some of these products in place and these investments in place and take advantage of this, the next step is you have to bring those assets over to our firm to manage and implement and execute this plan. And so you get that buy-in, and I can tell you that the advisors that buy into this concept of charging a fee for the planning and that sort of thing, their closing rate once a client pays them whatever the number is, $500 for a plan, whatever, their closing rate at that point is nearly 100% because there is already that buy-in. And what's crazy about our industry is we're probably one of the only industries out there that the majority of those practicing in our industry do all of this work, all of this planning. They don't get paid for it yet, and then they present it and try to quote unquote sell that person, and they're crossing their fingers that that person's going to buy their product or their sale or whatever it is, their plan. And so they do all the work in advance without having any payment yet or without having any buy-in. It's funny because if you think about any other profession, I mean, you'd never go to an auto mechanic who's going to fix your car for free, and then when you come back to pick it up, cross their fingers that you're going to pay them for the work that was done. They do a diagnostic on the front end. They tell you, well, it's going to cost you this much. Do you want me to do the work or not? And so that's part of the process that we coach with financial professionals is to really, one of the things that you can do to create professional contrast is to stop being like everybody else and doing the things that everybody else in the industry is doing, and change that experience for that client, because chances are they might have met with or maybe working with other financial professionals who all go through the same kind of process. And if you introduce something that's different, a different process, a different approach, they immediately see that. And we're big advocates of staging an experience and creating something that is so unique that is very different than anything that they've experienced before. And like I said, our industry, it's definitely a longer haul sale. It's a much bigger ask. And, we have to do something different in order to get that client to say, wow, you know what, this is different than everybody else I've been to. I'm willing to put my $1 million on the table to have you manage.
And there's so much good stuff in there in that answer that you gave. And you're so right how important it is to differentiate ourselves, because, I mean, especially if someone is looking into like a retirement planning or growing their nest egg or something, they might not just be looking at you. They might be looking at 6 different people. So, of course, you have to have that one thing to stand out and have that unique experience. And the way that you put it there, what was going through my head was, it's like, if these financial planners who are doing things the wrong way and they're doing all this upfront work for free, it's like they're trying to go across too big of a gap, right? It's like they're trying to convince someone that they need to put money into this, that you need to put money into what I'm doing, that what I'm doing is worth it. And it's like if they pay you a little bit of money, it inches them a little bit further up. And then what I really like about that funnel that you said there specifically was you get them to that live event and pay them that little bit to, as the tuition to go to that little event at the community college. And then that offer is for them to pay for that financial plan. And then the next logical step from there is then for them to pay to get that financial plan implemented. And it makes a lot of sense the way that you put it, because if someone they paid money to figure out how it's done, they paid money to get the plan, are they then going to go to someone else and say, hey, I know this other person made the plan for me, but can you do it for me? And I know that you might not get what they're saying. It makes more sense to just keep going in that direction and say, well, you made the plan. Now the next step in the funnel is for you to put the plan into action. I mean, it makes a lot of sense the way that you're explaining this. And I have to wonder if these people that are trying to do all this upfront work for free, maybe they have a little bit of a confidence issue, right? Maybe they don't believe themselves in themselves and their services, and maybe they need to take that risk and charge some amount of money. That way they can be dealing with better people, I think, right?
It's the training that has been in our industry forever. And so it's our industry, especially if you go back years and years to whether you're thinking about the life insurance salesman or the stock jock, if you will, and you think about, all the movies of them in the war room making dials and dials and dials and just selling. Our industry has always had a problem with, and we haven't gotten out of this rut, that it's a sales industry. And at the end of the day, sure, we're all selling something, but it's about how you're positioning what it is that you're selling. And, that the positioning and the approach that we try to encourage tries to take us out of the salesperson, for a financial professional being viewed as a salesperson versus being viewed as somebody who's a consultant and a trusted individual that has a defined process. And, sure, at the end of the day, they're all, for the most part, selling very similar things and recommending very similar things to their clients, but it's all about the process that they're taking. It's funny because people, as you well know, people love to buy, but they hate to be sold. And, they enjoy the buying experience. They want to feel in control of that buying experience. And I mean, that comes down to little things as much as writing copy. Good sales copy, is compelling. You've identified an urgent problem. You're making a unique promise to them. You're then introducing proof, unquestionable proof, and whether that's social proof through testimonials or what have you. And then you're introducing a very user-friendly proposition. That's persuasion, right? And that's kind of the simple formula. The biggest challenge that people have in our industry is creating a sense of urgency. And, I know with a lot of the stuff that you do a really good job of, kind of creating that urgency. Hey, this might expire soon, or this opportunity, or this deal, or, and in our industry, there's a fine line that we have to balance between being too pushy and saying, oh, this deal isn't going to last forever, yet we still need to have that urgency to get people to move, because, the last thing people want to be thinking about is, oh, I want to go out and buy a life insurance policy today, or I want to, go out and, invest $5 million. I mean, it's amazing how much, and one of the most important things in people's lives, their money, how much people will procrastinate about it. And, the things that we can do to try to establish urgency. So a lot of the marketing that we create is centered around life triggering events that automatically have a sense of urgency built into it. So things like, you're about to turn 62. Well, you have at that point a decision to make about Social Security and whether or not I should be taking it. At age 59 and a half, there's triggering events there that all of a sudden you have some additional options with your retirement accounts. There are things like you change jobs. Well, there might be a sense of urgency for you at that point to roll your 401k over from your prior employer and that sort of thing. So, we try to look for the things in one's life that automatically are going to trigger some degree of sense of urgency, but it's not always easy to create. And even when those opportunities present themselves, people will oftentimes still procrastinate. I mean, you have a baby, you know what? You should probably review your life insurance and that sort of thing. But yet a lot of people just kind of, they don't want to think about that. And, it's kind of an unfortunate scenario, but that's the role of the financial professional to help individuals see the instances where there is that sense of urgency.
And this seems to all connect very well the way that you're explaining this, where it's like, okay, people, they need the life insurance or they need the retirement planning, things like that. But if you just say, hey, here's some life insurance, they won't go for that. But if you say, here's this triggering event, the having the baby, the turn 59 and a half, that's the starting point. And that's great too, because then with your advertising, you can target that, right? You do the postcard blast, you do the Facebook ads, and then run that local event specifically around that life-changing event, knowing that there are some things unique to their situation, but then the end result is then this service that you're trying to provide. And as you're explaining on this, like what's clicking here for me is that we're saying that the problem is that people, I mean, in your industry, but in a lot of industries, they do the work for free for one person. And it seems like observing what you're doing with the, like being on this podcast or being on your radio show, you're still doing that amount of work for free, but the free work is in the marketing and the educating, right? So that it's like, there's still that time spent of, I don't know how this is going to pay off exactly doing this stuff for free, but it's in educating people and saying, well, the free advice is, here's what you need to know, in like, LinkedIn article form or in the radio show that you're giving or the podcast episode. But then that leads somewhere and it's like everyone else is just trying to say, here, you one-on-one personally for free, here's the plan. And it seems like your way is a lot better, right? The marketing is free.
Well, we like to think so. But what's funny about that, and you alluded to a few things there, and we're big on the podcast. I mean, our firm hosts 6 different podcasts here with different individuals. The radio show was a big thing for a long time for us. We do a lot of things that are really focused on, number one, content, number two, establishing trust, establishing thought leadership. And what's tough is that oftentimes the financial advisors that we work with, and this is true for a lot of entrepreneurs, there's the focus for them on ROI and how quick that ROI comes, right? We want to see this 4-to-1 ROI happen in a month. And, oftentimes when I'm asked by the professionals I work with, hey, what should I be doing? What's gonna put dollars in my pocket the quickest? And what's interesting is that all the things, the podcast, the radio show, writing white papers, whether you do your blogging and that sort of thing, it's pretty rare that the first time you do it, the third time you do it, that especially for us in our industry, that immediately you're going to get this ROI. But those are all the things that over time, you're just building this trust and establishing that thought leadership, that it's a timing thing for so many of these people that, all right, I've been seeing this guy's stuff for 3 years and now the timing's right. And I know he's trustworthy because he keeps cranking out these podcasts and he's got these blogs and he does this radio show. But so many entrepreneurs don't have the stick-to-itiveness to stay with that, because they are expecting that ROI to happen immediately. And, sure, we do certain things that certainly turns around, creates an ROI really quick, and can establish new clients and that sort of thing. It's one of the reasons why hosting events is a really big thing for our advisors, because we can plan an event in 4 to 5 weeks, have that event, and within a few weeks after that, they're already meeting with a lot of the people that came to the event. So opportunities and ROI, you might have a 3-month cycle for some of those. But a lot of what they don't always realize is that things like if they're hosting a radio show, if they're hosting a podcast, if they're writing in content on LinkedIn or wherever it is, those are all things that people are looking at and vetting out, at either right before they came to that event or right after, as they're evaluating whether they want to come and sit with you. You have to have that stuff out there to help boost. And for the advisors that do it right, that have that content out there, those clients are coming in, or those prospective clients are coming in, and they're almost pre-sold because they're seeing all the things that you've done and, all the work that you've put in. And what's funny is that a lot of entrepreneurs, they have a hard time connecting the dots between all of that work that they did and the fact that they closed a new sale, from an event. They think that it was just the event that closed the sale, when in fact it was probably a lot of the other stuff that your content that's out there, the thought leadership, the things that you've done to get your brand and create that awareness and continue to nurture and stay in front of them. Those are usually the things that probably actually tip that prospective client over to become a client.
Well, you're making a lot of sense here, and you're making a lot of good points that, we all could use more stick-to-itiveness, and if that's what we're lacking, then we need to look at that it's part of this longer cycle. And I'm sure you've had people listen to your podcast for 4, 5, 6 years before they buy one single thing from you. And all the time, I've had people where they were on my email list for 5 years, sometimes 10 years before they bought something. And then they ended up becoming someone who bought again and again. And so what I'm hearing from your answer here is that, like, we all need to maybe notice when we do this sort of thing, when we keep seeing someone on social media, or when we respond to an ad and that leads us to going to a live event. We've all gone through that process in some form or another. And so maybe we need to be aware of those times in our own lives when we as the buyer have been walked up the ladder. And then also I heard from you here that we need to maybe have some good mentors, some good role models, and see people like me or like you who keep cranking out the shows and who keep being consistent. And then maybe that's more of a path to follow. So that way, these people out there who know they need to be doing better, maybe they can be consistently writing the white papers and doing the media appearances, and that knowing that it will be add up. Because, yeah, like you said, people so many times are pre-sold. We think that them coming to our event or coming to our webinar just sold them completely. And it's like, no, they were already pretty warm at that point. They just needed that extra touch or that extra follow-up to push them over the edge. It's the sum of all the parts. And you're making a lot of sense here. This is all really good things for us to be listening to and implementing. So to make sure that everyone can stay in touch and keep the conversation going, where should they be checking you out, and where should they be keep getting some of this great advice from you?
Sure. Well, our podcast is my podcast is 16 Ways from Sunday. So you can, wherever you check out podcasts, the name is 16 Ways from Sunday. We also, our firm hosts a number of different websites, and some of them are more consumer driven. Some of them are more driven towards financial professionals. There is one called Advisor Advancement, and that's kind of in advisoradvancement.com. It's we're actually going through an overhaul with the site at the moment, but that site is basically a combination of a bunch of the podcasts that our firm puts out there, and some of the blogs and some of that content that goes out there. And our main website is usafinancial.com. Our client is the independent financial professional, but in addition, our client by proxy is also their investor clients. And so they work with our advisors are scattered all around the country. They all have their own individual brands, and their own individual companies. So, you can certainly follow us there. It's a fun business to be in. I love marketing. You touched on something a moment ago, and I'll just make one other point. What's really interesting for us in our industry, and I'm sure your audience is in the same spot, because it doesn't matter what industry you're in, we spend so much time trying to gain a new client. We spend a ton of money trying to gain a new client, right? And every business has their own metrics. And oftentimes we lose sight of the fact that, why not teach the already convinced our existing clients to convince the people that they know. And we try to do it, it's beyond just a referral. We try to coach them into making introductions and teach those clients that are already convinced, that are already clients of ours, how to make personal introductions of their clients and the people that they care about in, making those introductions, rather than just giving you a name. Oh yeah, contact Joe. We want to teach them how to do it and help them articulate the value of what it is that you offer as a service to their clients. And that's hard to do sometimes, but The more that you can name your processes, we're big advocates of naming everything, creating tangibility out of every single thing that you put out, every process that you have, every system that you have. Name it, make it unique, make it proprietary to you, so that the people that are already convinced can easily convey to their friends and others that could benefit from your service what it is that you do. And the more that you can spend time on the already convinced, if you invest time and money into those folks, the payoff's going to be a whole lot better. And oftentimes your closing rate's going to go up a ton, and your cost per acquisition goes down a whole lot if you can teach that group.
And you're speaking my language here. I mean, that's a really good point that I think we all need to pay attention to is in so many different ways, go after the already convinced. Why fight the uphill battle? Why try to talk someone into an idea plus to buy from you? Why not instead find people who are already looking for that solution or close to, and then just deal with those people? And if someone's not quite there yet, then they have white papers, radio shows, podcasts, blog posts, all those fun things. And then maybe they will get there. But then that way you can get super dialed in, focused, and teaching your unique proprietary system to those people who exactly need it and want it. And then you differentiate, which is what our whole talk has been. So yeah, so many great resources that you mentioned here. There's usafinancial.com, there's advisoradvancement.com, and then there's that 16 Ways from Sunday podcast. And you out there in podcast land, you're already listening to a podcast and you know the value in going and finding people who are already there or who already visited the trail that you want to go down or who can help you in some kind of way. And so you're already listening to this podcast. Why not add another one to the mix? 16 Ways from Sunday. And then to throw out those other links, advisoradvancement.com and usafinancial.com. I feel like we just did like 5 podcasts in one, Mark. So I appreciate you stopping by and for dispensing some of this great knowledge. You've given us a lot to think about. So thank you.
Absolutely. Hey, I appreciate the time, and we'll certainly, hopefully our paths will cross again here soon.
I guarantee it. Count on it. Have a good one. We really appreciate you listening to today's episode of Marketer of the Day. Subscribe to us on iTunes and rate and review us at marketeroftheday.com/iTunes.